It began on an unusually warm spring morning when the sprawling estate, hidden behind ancient oaks and framed by meticulously trimmed hedges, awoke under a sky of pastel blues and gentle clouds. In the quiet hours before the household stirred, the estate's gardener, Isabella, stepped onto the dew-kissed grounds. With calloused hands and a heart that had known both hope and heartache, she moved among the rose gardens and fragrant lavender beds, tending to each plant with the same care that she reserved for her secret dreams. Isabella had come to work at the estate many years ago, a simple woman with a quiet smile and eyes that held mysteries deeper than the richest soil. She was known for her gentle nature and her unfailing devotion to the living things under her care. Yet few knew that behind her serene exterior simmered passions that would one day upend the very fabric of the household. The home belonged to Eleanor Montgomery, a refined, warm-hearted woman who had inherited the estate from her late parents. Eleanor's presence lit every room. Her grace and kindness were the kind that could soften the hardest of hearts. She had, over the years, cultivated not just the gardens, but also a reputation as someone who saw beauty in the simple things. As the days passed, a tender friendship had blossomed between Isabella and Eleanor, a bond forged over shared secrets, quiet confidences exchanged in the early light of day, and long afternoons spent walking the winding paths of the estate's grounds. To the outside world, their friendship was innocent, even platonic. Yet beneath the gentle laughter and the soft murmurs shared over tea, a more complicated, dangerous emotion had been quietly taking root. For Isabella, every glance from Eleanor was like a whispered promise, a secret message that transcended the ordinary. Eleanor, too, found herself drawn to Isabella's unassuming sincerity and the raw vulnerability that lay behind her warm smile. In moments when the estate's corridors were hushed and the world outside seemed suspended in a dreamlike stillness, their eyes would meet, and in that fleeting connection, both felt the pull of something forbidden. It was a love that had no easy labels, a passion that grew in the shadows of propriety and in the spaces between duty and desire. Their clandestine meetings began almost imperceptibly. In the cool, early hours of morning, while the household still slept and the scent of damp earth mingled with the first light of day, Isabella would find herself lingering near the veranda where Eleanor often sat, lost in thought. Over time, gentle conversations turned into a secret rendezvous in the garden, hidden away behind towering hedges and ancient stone walls. The thrill of these encounters was as intoxicating as the perfume of the night-blooming jasmine that filled the air, and the very act of defiance, of loving and being loved in return, became a kind of rebellion against a world that demanded silence in the name of propriety. Yet, as is often the case with secrets, the more deeply one tries to conceal them, the more likely they are to be unearthed. Unbeknownst to the lovers, the estate's quiet routine was about to be shattered by an unexpected visitor, Richard Montgomery, Eleanor's husband. A man of dignity and tradition, Richard was a stern yet fair individual who had devoted his life to the family legacy and the upkeep of the grand estate. His love for Eleanor was sincere, yet it was tempered by the unyielding expectations of social decorum and the burdens of a life that rarely afforded him moments of passion or vulnerability. In his eyes, the estate was not just a home, but a fortress of respectability, a place where every secret was locked away behind polished doors and well-maintained hedges. For years, Richard had trusted in the apparent harmony of his family life. He had never suspected that the gentle smile shared in the morning light or the hushed laughter echoing from the garden held any deeper meaning. But as autumn began to cast long, melancholy shadows over the estate and the days grew shorter, a series of subtle clues began to emerge. Clues that, if pieced together, would reveal a truth too painful to ignore. One rainy afternoon, when the estate was shrouded in mist and the sound of the downpour filled the silence of the corridors, Richard found himself wandering into the gardener's shed, a small, unassuming outbuilding at the edge of the property. It was there, amidst the tools and the lingering aroma of fresh soil, that he discovered a scrap of paper tucked behind a wooden crate. At first, he dismissed it as nothing more than an errant note, but as he unfolded the yellowed piece of paper, his eyes widened in disbelief. The note was written in a delicate hand, and its words spoke of secret meetings, of forbidden love, and of an intimacy shared away from prying eyes. Each carefully penned line was a testament to a passion that had blossomed in the most unlikely of places, a passion that was as beautiful as it was treacherous. Richard's heart pounded in his chest as he clutched the note. In that moment, the world as he knew it began to fracture. The quiet certainty of his married life was replaced by a maelstrom of betrayal and confusion. He recalled moments, a lingering touch, a glance exchanged in the twilight, that he had once dismissed as innocent. Now, every memory was tinged with the bitter taste of deceit. In the days that followed, Richard's demeanor changed. Gone was the measured calm of a man who had long trusted in routine. In its place grew a storm of suspicion and anguish. Yet, even as his inner turmoil grew, he was torn between the desire for revenge and the need to understand the truth of what had transpired within the walls of his beloved home. Richard began a quiet investigation of his own. Under the guise of performing his regular duties around the estate, he started to observe more closely the subtle interactions between Eleanor and Isabella. The stolen glances, the secret smiles, they all spoke a language of their own, one that Richard struggled to decipher. Late at night, when the silence of the mansion was broken only by the ticking of an old clock in the hallway, Richard would lie awake, haunted by the images of his wife and the gardener entwined in a forbidden dance. His mind became a battleground of emotion, a war waged between the love he thought he knew and the betrayal that was slowly, inevitably, revealing itself. As the days turned to weeks, the tension on the estate grew palpable. The once tranquil gardens now seemed to hold their breath, the flowers bending as if in mourning for the innocence lost beneath their boughs. Eleanor, too, began to sense the shift. There were moments when her heart would tighten at the sound of a distant footstep, or when a lingering look in a mirror would remind her of the secret she had tried so hard to keep hidden. The weight of her choices pressed upon her, mingling with the vibrant hues of guilt and longing. She knew that the delicate balance of their forbidden love could not remain hidden forever, and that the moment of reckoning was drawing near like an approaching storm. One fateful evening, as twilight gave way to the deep indigo of night, the inevitable confrontation came to pass. Richard, having gathered enough evidence to shatter the fragile illusion he had built around his life, confronted Eleanor in the quiet solitude of the drawing room. The air was heavy with unsaid words, the silence between them more deafening than any shout. With trembling hands and eyes that shone with unshed tears, Eleanor tried to find words to explain the inexplicable, a love that had blossomed unexpectedly, a passion that had filled her with both ecstasy and agony, and a choice that had forever altered the course of their lives. But as Richard's gaze bore into her, filled with a mixture of heartbreak and indignation, the truth became undeniable. In that charged moment, the carefully constructed facade of their existence crumbled, leaving behind only raw emotion and the painful clarity of betrayal. The aftermath of the confrontation was a whirlwind of shattered trust, bitter regrets, and a desperate yearning for redemption. Richard withdrew into himself, his once steadfast demeanor replaced by a brooding silence. The estate, which had been a sanctuary of beauty and order, now resonated with the echoes of conflict and sorrow. In the midst of this emotional tempest, Isabella found herself caught between two worlds, a world of forbidden passion with Eleanor, and the harsh reality of a man's wrath that threatened to obliterate the fragile joy she had come to cherish. Her heart, already scarred by the secrecy of her own existence, trembled under the weight of a love that was as passionate as it was doomed. In the days that followed, the corridors of the estate became a stage for a drama that no one could escape. Whispers of the scandal spread through the household like wildfire, carried on hushed voices and furtive glances. The staff, once united in their quiet loyalty to the Montgomery family, now found themselves entangled in a web of conflicting loyalties and silent judgments. Each sunrise brought with it a new day of tense silences and the palpable dread of what might come next. Eleanor, torn between the love she had long harbored and the responsibility she owed to the sanctity of her marriage, was left to navigate the turbulent waters of remorse and regret. Meanwhile, Richard's grief and anger simmered beneath a veneer of stoic determination, his mind consumed by the need to reclaim a sense of control in a life that now felt irreparably fractured. Yet, amid the storm of emotions and the bitter taste of betrayal, there were moments of unexpected tenderness, a fleeting touch here, a look of shared sorrow there, that hinted at the possibility of healing. It was in these quiet interludes that the true nature of love was revealed, not as a force that conquers all without pain, but as something delicate and fragile that must be nurtured with honesty, forgiveness, and the willingness to accept that even the deepest wounds can one day mend. Over time, the mansion's once hidden secrets began to seep into every corner of the estate, transforming the atmosphere into one of bittersweet reflection. The gardens, meticulously tended by Isabella's steady hands, became a living metaphor for the complexities of human emotion. Each bloom a symbol of hope amid the ruins, each wilted petal a reminder of love lost and opportunities missed. As the seasons shifted and autumn's crisp air replaced the languid heat of summer, the estate became a silent witness to the evolving tapestry of human relationships, a tapestry woven from threads of passion, betrayal, redemption, and the inexorable passage of time. In the aftermath of that fateful night, as Richard retreated into the solitude of his study and Eleanor sought refuge in the quiet corners of the estate, Isabella found herself at a crossroads. The love she had shared with Eleanor was a source of both immeasurable joy and unspeakable pain, a love that had given her life a vibrant purpose even as it risked shattering the delicate balance of the world around her. With each passing day, the tension grew more acute, the emotional chasm between the lovers widening even as a strange, unspoken understanding began to take root. In the soft rustle of the wind through the trees and the gentle murmur of the estate's ancient fountains, there lay a promise that even in the midst of despair, the seeds of reconciliation might one day take root and flourish. Richard, driven by a desire to reclaim his dignity and restore order to a life that now seemed adrift, began to piece together his own path toward healing. In quiet moments, when a mansion lay silent and the memories of happier times seemed as distant as a half-remembered dream, he would wander the estate's vast corridors, seeking solace in the familiar sights and sounds that had once brought him comfort. And though the bitterness of betrayal still clung to his soul like a shroud, there emerged within him the faint stirrings of forgiveness, a tentative hope that, perhaps, the wounds of the past could eventually give way to a future built on truth and understanding. As the months turned into a slow procession of bittersweet days, the lives of Richard, Eleanor, and Isabella became inextricably entwined in a complex dance of emotions. Each moment was a struggle between the desire for retribution and the yearning for redemption, a struggle that played out in the silent glances shared over dinner, in the lingering touches exchanged in the garden at dusk, and in the solitary tears shed in the dead of night. The estate, with its ancient walls and timeless beauty, bore silent witness to every unspoken word and every hidden sorrow, its venerable halls echoing with the ghosts of a love that had dared to defy convention. In time, the scandal that had once threatened to tear the household apart began to settle into a quiet, melancholic rhythm, a cadence of sorrow and hope, loss and renewal. Eleanor, ever the gentle soul, emerged from the darkness of regret with a newfound resolve to rebuild what had been broken. She sought not to erase the past, but to learn from it, to embrace the full spectrum of her emotions, and to find a way to reconcile the complexities of her heart. Richard, too, embarked on a journey of introspection, seeking to understand the tangled emotions that had driven him to the brink of despair. And Isabella, whose role in the affair had once seemed like a transgression against all that was proper, found within herself a strength and resilience that defied conventional judgment. A strength born of a love so profound that it transcended the boundaries of societal expectation. Slowly, the wounds began to heal. The once tense atmosphere of the estate softened, as if the very air had been cleansed by the passage of time and the relentless power of forgiveness. There were still moments of quiet pain, a lingering glance here, a whispered apology there. But amid the sorrow, the promise of a new beginning glimmered like the first light of dawn on a long, dark night. In the garden, where the flowers now bloomed in riotous colors and the breeze carried with it the gentle scent of renewal, the three souls learned to navigate the delicate interplay of love and regret. They discovered that while some secrets can never be fully erased, the human heart is capable of extraordinary healing when nurtured by empathy, understanding, and the willingness to embrace the full truth of one's own emotions. And so, as the years continued their inexorable march forward and the estate settled into a new rhythm of life, one that bore the marks of both heartache and hope, a quiet transformation took place. The scandal that had once ignited a firestorm of betrayal and sorrow gradually became a distant memory, replaced by the soft glow of reconciliation and the resilient power of forgiveness. In the twilight hours, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky in hues of gold and rose, Richard, Eleanor, and Isabella would sometimes be seen walking together along the winding paths of the estate's gardens, a silent procession of souls who had learned that even the deepest wounds could, with time and compassion, give way to a future where love was reborn. Their story, though born of transgression and cloaked in secrecy, ultimately became a testament to the capacity of the human spirit to endure, to forgive, and to find beauty in the most unexpected of places. It was a story that whispered of the delicate interplay between passion and duty, of the fine line that separates right from wrong, and of the redemptive power of truth. In the end, the estate, and the hearts of those who dwelled within it, was forever changed by the events that had unfolded, leaving behind a legacy of resilience, hope, and the unwavering belief that even in the face of heartbreak, the promise of new beginnings will always shine through. In the lingering twilight of reconciliation, the estate's gardens seemed to murmur of bygone sorrows and hopeful promises. As the days lengthened into gentle mornings and soft, amber afternoons, the trio, Richard, Eleanor, and Isabella, found themselves gradually learning the art of coexistence in a world transformed by the revelation of forbidden passion. The scandal that had once rocked the very foundations of the Montgomery household had, through the passage of time and the tender healing of wounded hearts, begun to evolve into something akin to understanding. Yet, even as tentative peace took root, the undercurrents of mystery and unresolved desire continued to ripple beneath the surface of daily life. Richard, still haunted by the images of betrayal, embarked on a quiet journey within himself. Each day, as he wandered the estate's long, winding paths and observed the way the seasons transformed the landscape, he began to see reflections of his own inner metamorphosis. The cool morning mist and the golden glow of the setting sun became silent confidants, bearing witness to the slow process of forgiveness and the uncertain hope that perhaps love, though fractured, could be pieced together anew. In his solitude, Richard often revisited the memory of that fateful rainy afternoon in the gardener's shed, the scrap of paper that had unveiled a truth so painful it had once seemed insurmountable. And yet, in the quiet moments of introspection, he realized that every scar on his heart was a testament to the depth of the love he had known, and a reminder that even in the ruins of betrayal, seeds of redemption could be sown. Eleanor, with her ever-compassionate soul, became the gentle bridge between the broken pieces of the past and the fragile promise of a future reborn. She dedicated herself to mending not only her own wounded spirit, but also to nurturing the delicate bonds between Richard and Isabella, bonds that had been strained by secrecy and the harsh light of uncovered truths. Eleanor spent countless evenings in quiet conversation with Isabella, sharing memories of the early days when laughter had filled the air like music and hope had been as vibrant as the blooms in the estate's gardens. In these tender exchanges, she encouraged Isabella to speak her truth, to share the feelings that had long been locked away like precious secrets. And slowly, with each heartfelt conversation, the air around them seemed to lighten, as if the weight of unspoken words was being replaced by the promise of honest confession and mutual understanding. Isabella, whose life had been defined by the dualities of passion and restraint, found herself at a crossroads. The clandestine romance with Eleanor had awakened in her a passion that was as fierce as it was dangerous, a passion that had given her both joy and the burden of guilt. As she worked tirelessly in the gardens, tending to each flower and tree as though they were reflections of her own fragile heart, she began to confront the complexity of her emotions. In the quiet solitude of the early morning, as the dew glistened on the petals of freshly bloomed roses, Isabella allowed herself to dream of a life where love could flourish without the shadow of secrecy. Yet, the memory of the clandestine meetings, the rush of forbidden affection that had once ignited her soul, remained a bittersweet echo in her heart. She wondered if the love she had shared with Eleanor was destined to remain hidden in the depths of her soul, or if it could someday be embraced fully, free of the guilt and trepidation that had marked its early days. As the estate settled into a new rhythm, life outside its grand walls continued unabated. Neighbors and visitors, unaware of the tempest that had once raged within, admired the Montgomery estate for its timeless beauty and the sense of serenity it exuded. Yet, beneath the calm exterior, the echoes of past transgressions and the quiet struggles for redemption still reverberated. There were nights when Richard, walking alone beneath the starlit sky, would hear the soft rustle of leaves and think he could almost make out the whispered voices of regrets and dreams unfulfilled. And in those moments, his heart would ache with the knowledge that the path to forgiveness was long and fraught with pain, but also with the potential for healing beyond measure. One such night, as a gentle rain began to fall and the world was washed anew by the soft patter of droplets on ancient stone, Richard found himself drawn to the estate's centuries-old chapel, a small, unassuming structure nestled among towering cypress trees. Inside, the air was cool and hushed, and the faint scent of incense mingled with the memories of prayers whispered in times of hope and despair. There, in the stillness of that sacred space, Richard knelt before an altar adorned with faded flowers and lighted candles, his eyes closed in silent contemplation. In that quiet moment, he felt the stirring of something deep within, a fragile hope that even the harshest wounds might one day be healed by the power of forgiveness and the redemptive grace of time. Across town, Eleanor sat by a large bay window in the grand drawing room, her gaze fixed on the horizon as she contemplated the intricate tapestry of her life. The events that had unraveled with such dramatic force were now, in the soft light of the present, a series of lessons learned. In the steady rhythm of her heartbeat, she found solace in the certainty that the love between her and Isabella, though complicated by secrets and sorrow, was genuine and resilient. She recalled the early days of their clandestine meetings, the thrill of stolen moments in the garden, the silent promises exchanged under the boughs of ancient trees, and felt a warmth that defied the chill of recent memories. Determined to forge a future where honesty and compassion reigned, Eleanor resolved to confront the past with the same gentle strength that had always defined her. Meanwhile, Isabella continued her work in the gardens, each day a quiet ode to resilience and renewal. With every seed sown and every tender sprout nurtured, she felt as though she were participating in a subtle act of redemption, an offering to the future where the ghosts of forbidden love might be transformed into blossoms of hope. The garden, with its riot of colors and intoxicating scents, became her sanctuary, a living metaphor for the promise of new beginnings that lay just beyond the horizon of regret. And though the memories of those secret encounters still fluttered at the edge of her mind, she began to see them not as burdens, but as reminders of the passion that had once lit her soul, a passion that, if embraced with honesty and care, might someday lead her to a love untainted by secrecy. In the ensuing days, as autumn's golden hues deepened and the air turned crisp with the promise of change, the three found themselves drawn together more frequently. Their shared moments, though often tinged with the bittersweet flavor of the past, began to weave a tapestry of tentative hope, a tapestry where every shared smile, every whispered apology, was a step toward healing. Richard, with his newfound inner resolve, reached out to Eleanor, seeking a conversation that might help mend the shattered pieces of their union. In a quiet corner of the estate's sunlit courtyard, they sat together on a weathered stone bench, the silence between them both heavy and expectant. Richard spoke first, his voice a soft murmur against the gentle rustling of leaves. "I've spent many nights grappling with the weight of what has happened," he said, his words laced with sorrow and determination. "I never imagined that the life I built with you would be marred by secrets so painful. And yet, I cannot help but wonder if there's a way to move forward. If the truth, however bitter, might eventually lead us to a place of healing." Eleanor's eyes shimmered with tears unshed, and she reached out to clasp his hand. "Richard," she whispered, "I have always believed that love is not without its scars. We have both been wounded by choices made in the dark. But I also believe that if we are brave enough to face our past, to honor our mistakes, we might find a way to let the light in again." Their conversation, tender yet charged with the raw energy of shared pain and hope, marked a turning point, a moment when the possibility of forgiveness seemed as real as the crisp autumn air. And as the days turned into weeks, the estate began to resonate with a newfound energy, a sense of cautious optimism that whispered of a future where the ghosts of betrayal might be laid to rest by the gentle balm of understanding. Yet, even as these fragile bonds were being reforged, the lingering question of the forbidden love between Eleanor and Isabella hovered like an unspoken truth. While Richard and Eleanor embarked on a journey of healing, Isabella found herself at a crossroads, torn between the lingering allure of the clandestine romance and the promise of a future built on honesty and mutual respect. She wandered the estate at dusk, her thoughts as tangled as the ivy that climbed the ancient walls, wondering if the love she had shared with Eleanor was a beautiful mistake or a profound truth waiting to be acknowledged. One fateful evening, as the horizon blushed with the soft hues of twilight and the first stars began to peek through the velvety sky, Isabella sought out Eleanor in the quiet solitude of the garden. Beneath the gentle glow of lanterns strung along the garden path, she found Eleanor seated on a weathered bench, her eyes lost in the reflection of a small, tranquil pond. Isabella approached slowly, each step echoing with the memories of their secret trysts and the bittersweet longing that had defined their connection. "Eleanor," Isabella began softly, her voice trembling with a mixture of hope and uncertainty, "I've been thinking about everything, about us, about the choices we have made, and about the future we face. I cannot continue to hide in the shadows of our past. I need to know, can we find a way to let our love be known, even if it means facing the truth head-on?" Eleanor turned to her, the depth of her gaze reflecting both sorrow and an undeniable affection. "Isabella," she replied, her voice steady yet laden with emotion, "I've carried our secret in the depths of my heart for so long, afraid that the truth might shatter the life we have known. But I also know that love, when nurtured with honesty and courage, can transform even the darkest of circumstances. I believe that we owe it to ourselves and to the future to embrace our truth, to let the light of our love shine even in the face of adversity." In that tender moment, beneath the softly twinkling stars and the silent witness of the ancient garden, the two women made a silent pact, a promise to honor their love with authenticity and to no longer hide from the consequences of the choices they had made. It was a pact that would soon reverberate through the very walls of the Montgomery estate, challenging long-held beliefs and testing the strength of bonds that had once seemed unbreakable. As days turned into months, the atmosphere on the estate shifted once more. The secret that had been so carefully concealed began to emerge into the light, not with the force of a violent storm, but like the gentle unfurling of a flower at dawn. The truth of Eleanor and Isabella's love, once a source of forbidden desire and hidden glances, slowly became a part of the estate's living narrative, a narrative that embraced the complexities of human emotion and the transformative power of truth. Richard, though still grappling with the betrayal that had once torn his heart asunder, found in his own soul a capacity for forgiveness that surprised even him. In quiet moments of introspection, as he gazed upon the beauty of the estate and the resilience of the human spirit, he began to understand that love was a force far greater than the pain of deception. The process was neither swift nor easy, and there were days when the wounds of the past throbbed with fresh pain. Yet in the slow, deliberate cadence of time, the shattered pieces of his heart began to mend. Each piece a quiet testament to the possibility of renewal and the enduring hope that even the most forbidden love might, in its own way, lead to redemption. In the end, the Montgomery estate became more than a home. It became a living, breathing embodiment of the complexities of the human heart. Every corner held memories of passion. Every garden bloom was a symbol of hope reborn, and every whispered secret was a reminder that love, in all its forms, is as powerful as it is unpredictable. And as the seasons turned and the estate bathed in the gentle light of new beginnings, the lives of Richard, Eleanor, and Isabella continued to evolve. A slow, delicate dance of forgiveness, truth, and the quiet resilience of the human soul. And so, dear listener, as you reflect on this tale of forbidden love, betrayal, and eventual redemption, remember that the heart is a realm where light and shadow coexist. It is a realm where every secret, however deeply buried, holds the promise of renewal when met with honesty and compassion. The story of the Montgomery estate is a reminder that even in the midst of scandal and sorrow, the possibility of healing, and even of unexpected joy, remains. For it is in the fragile interplay of truth, forgiveness, and the raw, unyielding power of love that we find the strength to rebuild and to begin anew. In the wake of that transformative autumn, as winter's chill began to seep into the estate's ancient stones, a new phase of healing and uncertainty took hold. The days grew shorter, and the soft light of dusk settled earlier each evening, wrapping the Montgomery estate in an almost ethereal silence. Yet beneath the tranquil facade, every heart beat with a fervent determination to embrace the future despite the scars of the past. Richard, Eleanor, and Isabella, each a bearer of their own burdens, found themselves navigating a landscape where forgiveness and renewal waged a quiet war against lingering resentments and sorrowful memories. Richard, having come to a fragile understanding of his own heart's capacity for both pain and forgiveness, began to reconnect with the very essence of the estate that had once been his sanctuary. Each morning, before the first light of day painted the sky with pastel hues, he would wander through the vast, dew-laden gardens, letting the rhythmic rustle of leaves and the soft murmur of a nearby stream soothe his troubled soul. In these moments, the memories of betrayal slowly transformed into reflections of what had been lost and, perhaps, what could still be restored. He took solace in the realization that every bloom, even those that had withered in the wake of harsh winds, held the promise of rebirth if nurtured with patience and love. Eleanor, ever the gentle mediator, dedicated herself to the healing process with a steadfast devotion. Determined to mend the fractured bonds of her marriage and to reconcile the turbulent undercurrents of her heart, she immersed herself in acts of kindness and understanding. She initiated small gatherings within the estate, inviting longtime staff and neighbors to share stories of hope and renewal, weaving together a tapestry of community that stood as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. In quiet moments, as she sat by the large bay window watching snowflakes drift softly to the ground. Eleanor would reflect on the nature of love, its capacity to inflict deep wounds, yet also to mend them when treated with care and sincerity. Isabella, whose role in the forbidden romance had once been shrouded in the secrecy of clandestine meetings and furtive glances, found herself at a turning point. The garden, her longtime refuge and the silent witness to her deepest emotions, now served as the canvas on which she began to paint a new vision for her life. One where authenticity could replace the shadows of secrecy. With gentle determination, she started to open her heart in ways that were both raw and transformative. Her days were now filled with not only tending to the roses and daffodils, but also with engaging in heartfelt conversations with Eleanor, who encouraged her to share her hopes and fears without reservation. In these exchanges, Isabella discovered that the vulnerability of truth was far less frightening than the weight of a secret kept too long. It was the honest sharing of one's soul that allowed love to grow, even in the harshest of winters. As the estate moved inexorably towards spring, with winter's icy grasp beginning to loosen, a subtle yet profound shift took place. The scandal that had once cast a long shadow over the Montgomery household gradually yielded to a more nuanced tapestry of emotions. In the soft glow of a newly kindled morning light, the three, Richard, Eleanor, and Isabella, gathered on a weathered stone terrace that overlooked the sprawling gardens. The scene was almost cinematic, the delicate hues of dawn merging with the gentle vibrancy of freshly blossomed flowers, each petal a symbol of hope and the enduring possibility of renewal. In that moment, the air itself seemed to vibrate with a quiet promise that even after the deepest night, the sun would rise again, bringing with it the chance to heal and to begin anew. In the wake of that transformative autumn, as winter's chill began to seep into the estate's ancient stones, a new phase of healing and uncertainty took hold. The days grew shorter, and the soft light of dusk settled earlier each evening, wrapping the Montgomery estate in an almost ethereal silence. Yet beneath the tranquil facade, every heart beat with a fervent determination to embrace the future despite the scars of the past. Richard, Eleanor, and Isabella, each a bearer of their own burdens, found themselves navigating a landscape where forgiveness and renewal waged a quiet war against lingering resentments and sorrowful memories. Richard, having come to a fragile understanding of his own heart's capacity for both pain and forgiveness, began to reconnect with the very essence of the estate that had once been his sanctuary. Each morning, before the first light of day painted the sky with pastel hues, he would wander through the vast, dew-laden gardens, letting the rhythmic rustle of leaves and the soft murmur of a nearby stream soothe his troubled soul. In these moments, the memories of betrayal slowly transformed into reflections of what had been lost, and perhaps what could still be restored. He took solace in the realization that every bloom, even those that had withered in the wake of harsh winds, held the promise of rebirth if nurtured with patience and love. Eleanor, ever the gentle mediator, dedicated herself to the healing process with a steadfast devotion. Determined to mend the fractured bonds of her marriage and to reconcile the turbulent undercurrents of her heart, she immersed herself in acts of kindness and understanding. She initiated small gatherings within the estate, inviting longtime staff and neighbors to share stories of hope and renewal, weaving together a tapestry of community that stood as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. In quiet moments, as she sat by the large bay window watching snowflakes drift softly to the ground, Eleanor would reflect on the nature of love, its capacity to inflict deep wounds, yet also to mend them when treated with care and sincerity. Isabella, whose role in the forbidden romance had once been shrouded in the secrecy of clandestine meetings and furtive glances, found herself at a turning point. The garden, her longtime refuge and the silent witness to her deepest emotions, now served as the canvas on which she began to paint a new vision for her life. One where authenticity could replace the shadows of secrecy. With gentle determination, she started to open her heart in ways that were both raw and transformative. Her days were now filled with not only tending to the roses and daffodils, but also with engaging in heartfelt conversations with Eleanor, who encouraged her to share her hopes and fears without reservation. In these exchanges, Isabella discovered that the vulnerability of truth was far less frightening than the weight of a secret kept too long. It was the honest sharing of one's soul that allowed love to grow, even in the harshest of winters. As the estate moved inexorably towards spring, with winter's icy grasp beginning to loosen, a subtle yet profound shift took place. The scandal that had once cast a long shadow over the Montgomery household gradually yielded to a more nuanced tapestry of emotions. In the soft glow of a newly kindled morning light, the three, Richard, Eleanor, and Isabella, gathered on a weathered stone terrace that overlooked the sprawling gardens. The scene was almost cinematic, the delicate hues of dawn merging with the gentle vibrancy of freshly blossomed flowers, each petal a symbol of hope and the enduring possibility of renewal. In that moment, the air itself seemed to vibrate with a quiet promise that even after the deepest night, the sun would rise again, bringing with it the chance to heal and to begin anew. As the investigation deepened, so did the mystery. The clues pointed to a time when the Montgomery estate was not just a home, but the epicenter of a labyrinthine web of relationships, rivalries, and unresolved grievances. It appeared that the letter was more than a mere relic. It was a key to unlocking the tangled legacy of a family whose roots extended far beyond the manicured lawns and ancient oaks of the estate. With every new piece of evidence, the trio began to discern a pattern, a narrative woven from threads of love and loss, of ambition and regret. The deeper they delved, the more they realized that the current turmoil in their lives was but a reflection of long-ago wounds that had never truly healed. Night after night, as they sat together in the study, its walls lined with books that had witnessed countless generations of Montgomery secrets, they pieced together a timeline of events that spanned decades. There were moments of unexpected tenderness amid the investigative fervor, when the shared burden of uncovering the truth forged an unspoken bond between them. Richard's once solitary walks in the garden now became opportunities for reflective conversations with Eleanor, as they contemplated the nature of legacy and the possibility that the sins of the past might finally be forgiven in the light of understanding. Isabella, her own heart a reservoir of unspoken emotions, found solace in the strength of her companions, drawing upon their courage as she confronted the remnants of a past that had haunted her in quiet moments of introspection. In the soft glow of a winter evening, as the trio sat before a roaring fire in the mansion's grand foyer, a breakthrough finally emerged. The clues, once scattered like fragments of shattered glass, began to form a coherent picture, a narrative that hinted at a profound connection between the mysterious letter, a long-lost love, and the very soul of the Montgomery family. The revelation was both shocking and bittersweet, a reminder that the passage of time, no matter how relentless, could never fully erase the echoes of forgotten promises and hidden passions. And as the fire's embers glowed softly, casting dancing shadows on the ancient walls, the three knew that the journey they had embarked upon was far from over. Instead, it had opened a door to a deeper understanding, a doorway through which the past could finally be reconciled with the present, offering the promise of a future where love, in all its complexity, might yet prevail. In that moment, as the weight of history pressed gently upon their shoulders and the quiet murmur of the fire blended with the soft strains of a distant melody, they made a silent vow. They would not allow the secrets of the past to dictate the course of their lives any longer. Instead, they would forge a new path, one where the truth, no matter how painful, would be embraced with open hearts and a steadfast determination to heal. And so, with the mysterious letter as both a guide and a challenge, Richard, Eleanor, and Isabella set their sights on the horizon, ready to confront whatever revelations lay ahead, knowing that together, They could transform the legacy of pain into a future filled with hope, forgiveness, and the promise of love reborn. As winter's icy grip slowly loosened its hold on the Montgomery estate and hints of spring began to whisper through thawing branches, a renewed sense of purpose stirred within the hearts of Richard, Eleanor, and Isabella. Their journey through the labyrinth of family secrets and long-buried passions had led them down winding paths of sorrow, revelation, and quiet triumph. Now, as the days grew longer and the promise of renewal shimmered on the horizon, the trio found themselves at a crossroads, each step forward an opportunity to reforge the bonds of their shared destiny. The investigation into the mysterious letter had, over time, become a quest not solely for historical truth, but also for personal redemption. Richard, whose once impenetrable walls had begun to soften with the gentle persistence of Eleanor's compassion and the unwavering resolve of Isabella's loyalty, now found himself facing the ghosts of his past with an openness he had never thought possible. The faded photographs, the brittle pages of forgotten journals, and the echoes of whispered rumors had all coalesced into a narrative that painted the Montgomery family in shades of both light and shadow. With every clue that emerged from the depths of dusty archives and hidden compartments, Richard began to see that the scandal that had once shattered his world was part of a larger mosaic, a mosaic of love, loss, and the enduring power of forgiveness. In quiet moments spent wandering the estate's meandering paths, Richard would pause beneath ancient trees whose gnarled branches bore silent witness to generations of secrets. The soft rustle of leaves in the early spring breeze stirred memories of laughter once shared in the golden light of simpler days, as well as the painful fragments of betrayal that had threatened to tear his family apart. Yet, even as the pain of old wounds pulsed beneath his skin, there was now a tender hope, a fragile, yet resilient belief that the truth, however difficult to accept, could lead them all toward healing. Eleanor, ever the heart of compassion in this unfolding drama, devoted herself to creating moments of beauty amidst the turbulence. Determined to heal the fractures within her marriage and to honor the love that had once ignited the forbidden flame with Isabella, she embarked on a series of quiet acts that wove together the disparate threads of their lives. Each evening, as twilight bathed the estate in hues of soft lavender and gold, Eleanor would invite Richard and Isabella to join her for long walks through the gardens. Under the silent gaze of the stars, they would share memories of happier times and discuss the lessons learned from the pain of the past. These moments, delicate yet potent, were like small lanterns placed along a darkened trail, each one a step toward a future where truth and forgiveness might coexist. Isabella, whose life had been defined by the delicate balance of passion and restraint, continued to nurture the garden that had been her sanctuary since the day she first arrived at the estate. Every bloom, every budding leaf, was a testament to her inner strength and her belief that even the harshest winters could be overcome by the promise of spring. Yet, within the depths of her heart, she still wrestled with the lingering question: could the love she had once shared with Eleanor ever truly be laid bare before the world without inciting irrevocable pain? The secrecy of their past had been both a refuge and a prison, a space where passion had flourished in the shadows, but also a realm that had prevented them from embracing the fullness of their emotions. One dewy morning, as the first gentle rays of sunlight crept across the dew-laden lawn, Isabella found herself drawn to a secluded corner of the garden, a small clearing hidden behind a wall of climbing roses. It was there that she discovered a delicate sprout pushing through the frost-hardened earth, its tender green leaves a defiant sign of life amid the lingering chill. In that moment, the metaphor became clear. Just as the fragile plant dared to bloom despite the remnants of winter's grip, so too could their love, nurtured with honesty and courage, break free from the constraints of secrecy and doubt. With renewed determination, Isabella resolved to speak her truth openly. One crisp afternoon, she sought out Eleanor, finding her in the sunlit conservatory where the scent of blooming jasmine filled the air with promise. As they sat together on a weathered stone bench nestled among flowering shrubs, Isabella took a steadying breath and met Eleanor's gaze with a look that was both vulnerable and resolute. "Eleanor," she began softly, "I can no longer hide behind the silence of our past. Our love, however forbidden it may have seemed, is a part of who we are. It deserves to be seen, even if it risks stirring pain. I want to believe that by embracing it openly, we can find a path toward healing and acceptance for ourselves and for those who share our lives." Eleanor's eyes glistened with unshed tears as she reached out to clasp Isabella's hand. In that quiet moment, amid the rustle of leaves and the soft hum of nature awakening around them, Eleanor felt a surge of determination. "Isabella," she replied, her voice filled with both tenderness and resolve, "our hearts have carried this secret for too long, and in doing so, we have lost precious moments of truth and freedom. I believe that the time has come for us to let the light in, to trust that our love, however complex, can be a force for healing rather than hurt." Their conversation, earnest and unburdened by the weight of half-truths, marked a turning point. Together, they decided to share their story with those who mattered most in their lives. They resolved that the future would not be defined by the shadows of secrecy, but rather by the transformative power of honesty and compassion. Yet, as they prepared to reveal the truth, there remained the delicate challenge of navigating the fallout, a challenge that would test the bonds between all members of the Montgomery household. Meanwhile, Richard, having observed the quiet courage of Eleanor and Isabella, began to confront his own inner demons. The mysterious letter, which had once sparked a journey of painful discovery, now lay unopened on his desk, a silent reminder that the past still held mysteries yet to be unraveled. One night, unable to sleep and tormented by the unresolved questions that lingered in his mind, Richard found himself drawn once again to the family study. There, beneath the soft glow of a solitary lamp, he carefully opened the envelope and revisited the cryptic words written within. As he read the lines once more, a sense of inevitability settled over him. The letter, with its delicate script and mysterious implications, was a key not just to the legacy of the Montgomery family, but to the understanding that every secret, when finally laid bare, carries the potential for both destruction and redemption. Richard's heart pounded with the realization that the painful truths of the past were not meant to be buried forever. Instead, they were to be confronted head-on, acknowledged, mourned, and ultimately accepted as an integral part of the journey toward healing. With a deep, steadying breath, he resolved to support Eleanor and Isabella as they prepared to share their truth with the world. For in the act of revealing what had been hidden, he knew there lay the promise of a future where the scars of betrayal might one day give way to the tender blossoms of forgiveness. In the days that followed, as spring fully unfurled its vibrant tapestry over the estate, the Montgomery household braced itself for a revelation that would forever alter its course. With trembling hands and hearts full of both trepidation and hope, Eleanor and Isabella gathered those closest to them. A small circle of trusted family members, lifelong friends, and devoted staff who had shared in the joys and sorrows of life on the estate. In the gentle light of a warm afternoon, amid the soft rustle of leaves and the delicate fragrance of blossoming flowers, they recounted the story of their forbidden love, a story of secret meetings beneath moonlit skies, of stolen moments that defied societal norms, and of a passion that had sustained them through the darkest hours of isolation. As each word was spoken, the atmosphere shifted from one of quiet tension to one of cathartic release. Tears were shed, not solely out of sorrow for the pain that had been endured, but also as a tribute to the courage it took to embrace one's true self in the face of overwhelming adversity. The revelation, though met with initial shock and disbelief by some, gradually gave way to empathy and understanding. In the shared vulnerability of that moment, the Montgomery family discovered that the strength of their bonds was not measured by the perfection of their past, but by the resilience of their hearts and the willingness to forgive. In the aftermath of the disclosure, life at the estate began to take on a new rhythm, one where the painful echoes of secrecy were slowly replaced by the gentle cadence of acceptance and growth. Richard, Eleanor, and Isabella each embarked on individual paths of healing, yet their lives remained inextricably linked by the shared experience of having faced the truth. The estate, once a silent witness to hidden transgressions, transformed into a haven of renewal, a place where every corner, every bloom, and every whispered memory told a story of transformation and the promise of new beginnings. As the summer sun shone brightly over the revived gardens, and the once shadowed halls of the mansion began to echo with laughter and shared dreams, the legacy of the Montgomery family evolved into a testament to the enduring power of love and forgiveness. The scars of the past, though they would always remain, no longer define the future. Instead, they served as gentle reminders of the journey that had led to this moment. A journey marked by the bravery to reveal one's true self and the determination to build a life founded on truth, compassion, and the promise that even the most forbidden love can be transformed into a beacon of hope. And so, dear listener, as you take in the gentle cadence of this unfolding tale, a story of passion, betrayal, redemption, and the complex interplay of human emotions, remember that the path to healing is often paved with both pain and beauty. The Montgomery estate, with its ancient walls and ever-changing seasons, stands as a living testament to the truth that love, when nurtured with honesty and courage, can overcome even the darkest of secrets. In this quiet symphony of hearts laid bare, each of us is invited to find solace in the knowledge that forgiveness, like the tender bloom of a flower after a long winter, is always possible, even in the wake of the most turbulent storms. As the weeks slipped into months and the mystery of the old letter began to yield its secrets, a quiet urgency took root in the hearts of Richard, Eleanor, and Isabella. The Montgomery estate, once defined by carefully hidden transgressions and the silent toll of forbidden passions, now pulsed with the steady beat of investigation and introspection. Every corridor, every well-tended garden, seemed imbued with a sense of expectancy, as if the very walls of the mansion were eager to reveal long-buried truths that had been hidden for generations. The breakthrough came on a particularly crisp morning, when Richard, poring over a collection of faded documents in the estate's neglected archives, discovered a series of meticulously penned letters. These letters, bound together by a faded ribbon and tucked away in a forgotten drawer, appear to be the missing pieces of the puzzle that had haunted his thoughts ever since the mysterious envelope had arrived. Each letter bore the unmistakable marks of a bygone era, the ink slightly smudged by time, yet the words within resonated with the clarity of a confession long overdue. They told a tale of secret alliances, of promises made in the glow of twilight, and of a family legacy steeped in both passion and pain. Richard's hands trembled as he read the delicate script, each line etching a story of love and betrayal into his mind. The letter spoke of a forbidden liaison between a member of the Montgomery lineage and a mysterious stranger, a liaison that had, for reasons lost in the annals of time, resulted in a hidden union and the birth of a child whose existence had been deliberately erased from the public record. As Richard pieced together the fragmented narrative, he realized that the very scandal that had rocked the present was rooted in the past, a past where the boundaries of duty, desire, and honor had blurred into a tapestry of intricate emotions. With the newfound knowledge in hand, Richard called Eleanor and Isabella to join him in the quiet solitude of the study, a room steeped in the aroma of old books and memories. The soft glow of a vintage desk lamp illuminated their faces as they huddled around a battered wooden table, the letters spread out like fragile petals awaiting careful examination. Eleanor's eyes filled with both sorrow and determination as she listened to Richard recount the story that the documents revealed. In a voice tinged with both regret and resolve, he explained how the Montgomery family's legacy was more complicated than any of them had ever imagined. There was a lineage of secrets, a pattern of concealed romances and suppressed truths that stretched back decades, binding their fates to a series of decisions made in the shadows of societal expectations. Isabella, whose own heart had been a quiet repository for the forbidden love she once shared with Eleanor, felt an unexpected kinship with the revelations. As Richard's words filled the room, she could almost see the contours of the past unfolding before her eyes. Clandestine meetings in hidden alcoves of sprawling estates, the thrill of whispered promises, and the bitter taste of regret when those promises were broken by duty or circumstance. In that moment, the trio realized that their current struggle for acceptance and forgiveness was not an isolated incident. It was the latest chapter in a long, winding saga that had defined the Montgomery name for generations. The discovery ignited a fire within Eleanor. Determined to honor the memory of the past while forging a path toward a more honest future, she resolved that the time had come to share these truths with everyone affected by the family's legacy. With gentle yet unwavering resolve, she began organizing a series of private gatherings with trusted family members, longtime friends, and even some of the estate's senior staff, those who had quietly borne witness to the unspoken history that had shaped the household. In each meeting, Eleanor spoke with a soft yet commanding clarity, recounting the long-hidden tales of passion, duty, and sacrifice that had once defined the Montgomery legacy. The atmosphere in these sessions was one of catharsis. Tears were shed, voices trembled with emotion, and, slowly, the heavy burden of secrecy began to lift. Richard, for his part, found solace in the act of unburdening the past. No longer confined to the silent torment of unanswered questions, he began to see the letters as a means of healing, a way to confront the painful truths that had long threatened to fracture his identity. In his quiet moments of reflection, as he walked the estate's labyrinthine paths under skies painted with the delicate hues of early dawn, he allowed himself to acknowledge the complexity of love and the inevitability of mistakes. He recognized that every scar, whether etched on the heart or hidden within ancient documents, was part of the mosaic of his life, a mosaic that, when viewed in its entirety, held the promise of renewal. Isabella, too, embraced this turning point with a mixture of cautious optimism and lingering trepidation. The secret love she had shared with Eleanor, once shrouded in the darkness of clandestine meetings and furtive glances, now stood exposed under the gentle light of truth. While the prospect of public acknowledgement filled her with both relief and fear, she knew that only by stepping into the open could she truly begin to heal. Together with Eleanor, she participated in the gatherings, sharing her own memories with an honesty that was both raw and liberating. Their voices, once hushed in the shadows, now resonated with a determination to reclaim the narrative of their lives, to transform a tale of forbidden passion into one of resilience and the transformative power of love. As the seasons continued to change, the Montgomery estate itself seemed to echo the shifting tides of emotion. The once ominous corridors and hidden rooms, which had borne silent witness to years of concealed transgressions, now thrummed with a palpable sense of hope. The gardens, lovingly tended by Isabella's careful hands, flourished with vibrant blooms that symbolized the possibility of new beginnings. In the soft murmur of the wind through the ancient oaks and the gentle rustling of leaves underfoot, one could almost hear the quiet promise of forgiveness, a promise that even the deepest wounds could eventually yield to the tender ministrations of time and compassion. One particular evening, as the estate basked in the glow of a brilliant sunset that set the sky ablaze with fiery oranges and gentle pinks, a moment of profound clarity descended upon the household. Richard, Eleanor, and Isabella gathered once more in the study, their faces illuminated by the warm light of the setting sun filtering through tall, arched windows. In that sacred space, with the letters spread out before them like sacred relics, they shared a silence heavy with unspoken understanding. It was in that silence, a silence that spoke of shared pain, collective resilience, and the unyielding desire to move forward, that the true essence of their journey revealed itself. For in the unveiling of long-held secrets, In the act of laying bare the intricacies of their shared past, they had not only reconciled with the ghosts that haunted them, but had also paved the way for a future unburdened by the chains of silence. Their story, woven from threads of forbidden love, betrayal, and eventual redemption, had become a living testament to the enduring strength of the human heart. It was a reminder that even in the midst of scandal and sorrow, there exists the transformative power of truth, a power that can heal even the most deeply fractured bonds and open the door to new possibilities. And so, dear listener, as the twilight deepened into a star-studded night and the estate settled into a peaceful slumber, the Montgomery family embraced a future defined not by the shadows of their past, but by the radiant light of hope and forgiveness. In that luminous moment, the legacy of secrecy and hidden transgressions was finally transmuted into a legacy of resilience. A legacy that promised that no matter how tumultuous the journey, love, when nurtured with honesty and compassion, could ultimately prevail.